I've watched managers time and time again nail goal setting, nail a deep dive one-on-one, nail really getting to know the guys that are on your team, and then they just lose them. And 90 days later, that guy is gone. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is that you're failing to hold your weekly one-on-ones with this regular cadence. If you don't tell your guys, here's the bar, I'm leading you in this way, I care enough about you to have a weekly one-on-one, you're going to lose them. And that's all there is to it. So today I'm going to talk about how to do an actual one-on-one. Last week I talked about how to do a deep dive one-on-one. This week is all about how to do your regular weekly cadence one-on-one. You're not going to take 2 hours every week to do a deep dive. You're going to take 15 minutes, maybe even just 10 minutes, because you're going to follow a structure for a weekly one-on-one. And that's where leadership really happens. That's where accountability really happens. That's where you can look at somebody and say, hey, we set some goals. I know what's important to you. I know what your goals are there for. And now this is my chance to make sure you stay on track to hit your goals. So welcome back to the Monster Mindset Podcast. If you're not already, make sure you like, subscribe, and share. I'd sure appreciate that. But again, the context today is how do you do a one-on-one, a regular weekly cadence one-on-one? What do you do each and every week with each one of your people on your team to ensure that your leadership is effective and to ensure that your team member stays on track and understands that they're being held accountable and that it matters. It matters to your company. It matters to their performance. It matters to your team and how you lead them. All of those things matter. So I'm going to teach you the format, and it's a pretty basic and simple format that you should follow every single time. What's the cadence? How often should you be doing it? And this cadence, this regularity is what separates people who are actually leading from people who are just posing, who are just saying, hey, how's it going? I'll accept anything you do and give you a pat on the back. That's a big difference. The weekly one-on-one with one guy, not a sales meeting, a one-on-one is what makes the difference. So here's the problem. You have your deep dive one-on-one. You got a new guy. You just hired him. You get to know the guy. You set goals. He knows where he's going. You know where he's going. But where it falls apart is the behavior never changes. They don't come in knowing that there's a standard that they're going to be held to. And so when you first are getting to know them, if you watch that deep dive one-on-one on the last podcast where I taught about that, but you've gotten to know them, you've set goals at this point, and now there's a rule you got to live by. Every 7 days, you're going to have to keep it up to date. You're going to have to keep them dialed in. How are you going to do that? You're going to do that with that one-on-one. If you're failing to do that, it's not the employee's fault. It's your fault. You're the leader. You're the person who is failing to do it right. That's all there is to it. It's a simple conversation. It follows a simple format. And if you wait 2 weeks, you wait a month, you've lost them. They don't feel like you care anymore. They don't feel like the goals matter anymore. They don't understand that there's going to be accountability. And in most cases, let's face it, most people are not self-motivated enough to keep with their goals. That's just the truth of the reality. Most people, they just lack that motivation. They need somebody to tell them what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong. And that's your job. That's why you're a leader. That's why you're a sales manager or a production manager, or whatever it is in the role you're in. If you're leading people, if you're not keeping your people on task and focused and aware of what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong, you are failing. You're not trying to do a status update in a one-on-one. This is what, your one-on-one should not be a status update where you're just like, hey, how you doing, buddy? Oh, yeah, good job. Yeah, so, onward, forward, whatever. It's not your vibe check. It's not a time for you to sit and listen to complaints, right? Figure out another time to listen to complaints. A one-on-one is where you have accountability and you get to the point and you make it happen. It's not an hour of your time. It's 15 minutes tops. If you are having a complaint session or a vibe check or a check-in and a status update, you're not doing the job right. Let that sink in. If that's what's happening, you are not doing the job right. You're not leading. You're just a figurehead. If you want to have a successful team, you got to act like the successful leader. You got to make it happen. So here's what it boils down to. You're going to go through the numbers first. You're going to talk about your blockers. You're going to talk about what they're doing for development, and then get a personal pulse on it at the end. 4 steps, 4 simple steps. It's not rocket science, something that everybody can do. So numbers first, you lead with this, always lead with this. What's their scorecard? What do their KPIs look like? How many new prospects do they have? How many deals are they closing out? How many reviews have they gotten? How many, jobs did they install? How many callbacks happened? You know your numbers for the role that you're leading for, right? You have to know what the expectation is. If you don't, that's a failure on your part. Again, leadership and success in a team is almost always a failure of leadership. I can't tell you how many times I sat and watched a team completely fail. And, after you see that enough times, you recognize that leader, their team is a reflection of them. There is no other way about it. The team is always a reflection of the leader. If you got a lazy team, you got a lazy leader. If you got a team that's not hitting their numbers, you got a leader who's not holding accountability. If you got a team that's unattached, you got a leader who hasn't had deep dive one-on-ones and really gotten to know his team. These things are always a reflection of the leadership. So number one, start off your one-on-ones every single week with every person on your team with numbers first. They walk in, you review the numbers. They know that's what's going to happen. It's going to happen every week. They're going to come in prepared. You're going to be prepared because you're going to review the numbers and you're going to nail them to the wall on that, right? And you're going to hopefully pat them on the back and tell them, good job. Your numbers are looking great. Well done. Or you're going to say, hey, what are you going to change this week? Let's talk about your numbers. Number two thing that you're going to talk about is what are their blockers? What's in your way that I can remove? I literally just had a one-on-one with one of my guys, one of my commercial sales guys, and he had some real blockers. There were some real issues there. And I was able to it wasn't a complaint session. It was just like, hey, what are your blockers? What's not happening that needs to happen that is affected by other people? And I immediately took care of those things. I sent out some Slacks, I sent out some text messages, and I made some calls right there on the spot to make sure the blockers were removed. That was my opportunity to demonstrate that I cared about his performance, that I cared about his success, because I took immediate action to remove his blockers. If you wait, then he's going to wait, and failure is going to happen. And you should just straight up count on that. So you can't wait on blockers, address them immediately. That's all there is to it. The third thing is you're going to talk about their development. What are they working on getting better at? What skill are they developing? Are they doing role playing? Are they reading books for self-improvement, for skill improvement? Are they enrolled in a course? Is there anything that's tied to some way that they're going to improve? And you know what? This applies in other ways that don't seem immediately apparent. If you have a team of people who you're having weekly one-on-ones with, you're having that weekly cadence of hey, consistent accountability, and you add in this personal development where you're actually making them hey, what's your workout schedule like? How are you doing on losing weight? Did you schedule that date night with your wife and you're doing these things consistently? But in particular in development, are you reading? Are you listening to a podcast that are helping you improve? Are you are you role playing? Are you studying? Is there something that you're doing to develop as a human being? And it doesn't have to be directly applied to work, because the trickle over effect from somebody working on themselves as a human being always shows up in work also. That physical challenge, that exercise habit, that reading habit, those things always show up in work ethic, in passion for what they do, because people feel like they're growing if they're developing. And if they're growing, they're going to do better, period. So that's number three. It's pretty straightforward. Number four is the personal pulse. How you doing, man? How's life outside of work? You've covered the business. Now you've got some room to breathe, right? This is where your deep dive one-on-one is going to pay off. This is where you're going to say, have you started saving the money for that trip or that car or that house? Have you started looking for a house? You're leaving the dessert to last. You're not trying to eat the dessert first, because reality is if you eat the dessert first, you're going to get sidetracked. You're not going to pay attention. You're not going to be getting done what needs to be done. Don't let that happen. Cover business, then go personal, right? You cover the business, even if you had to kind of beat them up a little bit because hey, maybe there's something's not happening. You need to tell them to get in gear and make things happen this next week. A lot of, frustration. If you left it at that, you could have somebody walking out that's just frustrated and just thinks you're a jerk, right? You don't want that. So this is your chance to check in on that personal pulse. How are you doing as a human being? How's your life? What's going on? You need somebody to talk to, whatever. Cover the business first, cover the personal last. So that's 4 steps. Effective one-on-ones, weekly cadence. All right, so what's the scorecard look like? You don't need to be trying to measure 15 different things. You don't even want to be measuring 5 or 6. What you really want is 3, at tops 4 things that you're measuring. What are those KPIs, those key performance indicators? If you don't have defined KPIs, you should. You got to change the game and have defined KPIs. How do I measure the success of this person? If you're in sales, it's like, how many approaches did you make? Like, how many prospects did you reach out to? Then maybe how many pitches did you actually do, or inspections? And then how many did you actually close? And then how many of those actually converted into like done deal? We made this sale. It's being produced and it's being paid for. 3 or 4 is good. If you can measure those 4 things, you should be able to measure the success of the person. So make sure that at the beginning of that meeting on that step 1 where you're reviewing the numbers, you know your KPIs, you know the 3, maybe 4 tops key things, absolutely 5. If you go beyond 5, you're out of control. You don't know what you're measuring anymore, and it just gets lost in the sauce. I recommend 3, tops 4. If you have to go to 5 because you feel like your business is just too complicated for anything less, okay. But if you get past that, don't waste your time. You're getting lost. And you're not going to be able to keep track of it anyway. So 3 to 5 things, you know the role, you know the numbers, you know what to hold them accountable to, and you make sure you talk about it. So that's the scorecard. The scorecard is the agenda when you start the meeting. Now let's talk about the cadence. Same day, same time, every week, without fail. Somebody better be on vacation for that to not happen. If you let it slip outside of that because you can't keep tight enough control over your schedule or tight enough control over your team's schedule, you're failing. This is all on leadership. You let guys make excuses. You let them like schedule things over the top and they tell you they're too busy. They got this, that, and the other thing. Even successful guys want to have that sounding board. They want to have that check-in. They may say they don't, but they do. Because what it does is it keeps them on pace. Sometimes even when you're super self-motivated, you're dedicated and you're driven, it's really great to have somebody to be able to be like, hey, how are you doing on this, man? Like, check in on your numbers. Let's see where you're at. Even if you're successful, having your leadership show interest in your success by checking your numbers to show investment in you as a person and how you're going to develop as a person and how you're going to hit your goals for the year by meeting with you for 10 to 15 minutes every week is a small investment for the positive results that you're going to get out of your team. So make it happen every week. Make sure you cover the numbers, the blockers. You go through some personal development and you get their personal pulse. You do those 4 things. You do it at the same time, week in, week out, on the same day. That's going to turn your team around completely. So make sure you don't miss a beat on that one. So what did you just learn? You learn about your regular weekly cadence one-on-one, the 4 steps of the one-on-one, and you're making sure that you're following them week in and week out. It's not rocket science. It's very simple. It's just the execution is the difficult part. The dedication to making sure that these things happen is the difficult part. But write down the cadence, write down, what, and put it on your calendar, repeat appointment for you and your guy. This is when it's happening, same time, all the time, and make it happen and don't miss. If you can follow that format that I just taught you, go through their numbers, make sure that you're like talking about their development and their personal pulse, all the things I just covered, you're going to be miles ahead of where you will be at otherwise. And if it's on your calendar, you're going to be a rock star as a leader. So what are the deliverables? Right now, you should take and schedule your one-on-ones with your team. If you haven't been doing them, start out by scheduling them. Maybe you schedule half your team for this week just to get the feel of it, and next week you start in with all of them. But pick that and roll with it. It's on the calendar. You got it nailed down for a 15-minute window. You prepare ahead of time for it so you have the numbers in front of you, or you have a way that you can pull them on the spot, ideally, right? And you write their scorecard. You know what their scorecard is before you actually meet with them. If you can do that, then you're going to walk in prepared. You're going to walk in confident. You're going to walk in knowing what the plan is. You're going to go through the scorecard. You're going to go through their blockers. You're going to go through what they're doing to develop as a human being, and you're going to get their personal pulse, and you're good to go. Don't cancel. Don't miss it. Roll it out right now. That's the plan. At the end of the day, here's what it boils down to. Your deep dive one-on-one earns trust. Your weekly one-on-one earns results. Skip the BS, skip the pats on the back, hold these and hold them religiously and make that part happen. And you're going to find that your monster mindset about doing this stuff is going to turn into monster results. So get out there and make it happen, and I'll see you next week.